Hello, everyone, and welcome to the We're Talking About Stuff podcast. My name is Leila.
And I'm Michael.
Today, we're going to talk about veganism. And before, I don't want to scare anybody away. Obviously, shout out to all the vegans out there, but want to put a quick disclaimer that at least I know for myself, I don't think everybody needs to be vegan. Like, yes, that would be great, but you can choose to eat whatever you want to. Both Michael and I are vegan, so this is a big topic in our life. So we wanted to talk about it. But just know that we are not gonna be like pressuring anybody to go vegan in this episode. It's kind of just sharing our experience and thoughts around everything with the topic. So I guess you want to start with when you went vegan?
As we were doing the intro, I was like, maybe I should have like refreshed my memory on what year I went vegan. But it
Oh,
was,
because you always forget, right?
yeah, I think it was like probably maybe 13 years ago, 13 or 14
Hmm.
years ago. And it was on November 1st. So I remember what month it was,
Yeah.
but not which year. But it's been a long time.
Hmm.
I was vegetarian. I just sort of, I mean, I knew this, I didn't forget, but way back in like the late 80s, I was vegetarian and like an animal rights activist for a couple months, for a couple of years, maybe a
Hmm.
year, 2 years. And then for whatever reason, I was like, never mind. I don't care about that. So I went back to eating meat and everything.
Yeah.
And then it was again, like whatever that was 13 years ago that I
Hmm.
went vegan again.
Why was it that you felt that you didn't care about it? Like, did it still, when you went back to eating meat, did you feel bad about it at all, or do
I don't
you
think
remember?
I did. And I mean, I think part of what happened, like right around that time period, it was also when I started really going back to last episode,
Hmm.
started partying and drinking and doing drugs. So, I mean, I think that was part of what happened going into like, I mean, I don't think I decided like, okay, now I'm going to enter my addict phase. But I
Yeah.
think in that time period, things that mattered to me didn't matter as much.
Hmm.
So I think that's basically what happened.
Yeah. And how long were you vegetarian for?
I want to say it was at least a year. Maybe it was more like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were vegetarian, then non, just regular, and
Yeah.
then vegetarian again, and then vegan, right?
I went, once I decided to go vegetarian again, I
Hmm.
really kind of already knew that the thing that would match for my values was being vegan. So I didn't really have a vegetarian phase so much. Like I did a lot of back and forth between like, okay, today's the day I'm going vegan, and then
Hmm.
would eat at KFC the next day or something.
Okay.
There was a
Okay.
lot of that back and forth, but I didn't do like a phasing in of like, okay, I'll go vegetarian for a while. Okay, that worked. I mean, I was
Hmm.
sort of all or nothing about it
Yeah.
until it finally just stuck.
Yeah. And what do you think made it stick for you?
I think it was really like I just knew one of the things. Oh, and this goes back to when I lived in Georgia for a short time, and I was living at this intentional community called Koinonia Partners. It's in Americus, Georgia. It's a
Okay.
small town. But the whole place was about nonviolence. And I
Hmm.
had already been thinking about like veganism and nonviolence and how they work together.
Hmm.
And while I was at that place, they were talking so much about nonviolence, but serving meat. Um, so it made me really like sort of see that what to me was kind of a conflict.
Yeah.
So I think that really stuck with me, and it's what kind of propelled me to like, okay, like this doesn't match for what you want to be doing in your life. So
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
excuse me,
Interesting.
how I got there. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I went vegetarian first as well, but I did it when I was really young. I was 12, and it was just a thing. It was like my decision. It really bothered me to be eating meat. Like I knew where it was coming from. And at the time I had been exposed, somehow I came across, it was probably PETA, like somehow PETA came up in my life.
Hmm.
And I saw the videos of the awful, awful videos that are forever ingrained in my brain. And I don't need to watch those anymore. I never will, you know. But being like 11, 12 years old, watching that was really traumatizing. And for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, it was like animals being slaughtered. It's truly awful. So I remember seeing those and then just like connecting the dots even before that. I think I had told you this before. I'd mentioned it maybe in another episode we did, but in elementary school, they served pigs in a blanket, which is like the meat wrapped in little hot dogs wrapped in pastry or whatever. And I thought that was so disturbing. Like this is an actual pig in a blanket, and I did not. I remember not being able to eat it because I felt so disturbed by that. And
Hmm.
then I never liked fish. Like I always thought seafood was disgusting. And then yeah, I just really felt so bad anytime that I was eating it. Like I don't know, that as at a young age, I always liked animals. So I told my parents I wanted to go vegetarian. And then my mom was like, oh, I think I'll go vegetarian too. So she's still kind of vegetarian at this point, but not vegan. And then my sister went vegetarian as well because she's also an animal lover. So that helped. My dad was like, not super thrilled about all of us like trying to go vegetarian, but he was ultimately supportive, like cooking non-meat food. So that was helpful. And then I had always wanted to go vegan, like later on when I was a teenager, but I was like, I can't give up pizza. I can't give up cheese. I love it too much. That was always my excuse. And then
Yeah.
in March 2016, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go vegan for 30 days. Like just do it for 30 days. That's all I wanted to do, just because I like to do random challenges. And then it stuck. I was like, I'm not. And kind of going into it, I knew that I would never go back.
Yeah.
Um, there was this beauty influencer that I watched at the time, Carly Bybel. She's like a huge beauty influencer, and she went plant-based. And at the time, I was like, if she can do it, like I can do it because she doesn't even like she probably doesn't love animals as much as I do. Like, why wouldn't I do this? Because at that point, I had really realized the how bad the dairy industry was, and I would say it's almost worse than the meat industry. So, yeah, I did get some exposure to that, learned about how bad it is and disgusting it is, at least in my opinion. So I was like, no, I'm just gonna do it. But it was easy to go into that, like to present it to my dad and stuff, like, oh, it's just 30 days. I'm not eating anything from animals, and he didn't love it, but
Yeah.
yeah, so ever since then, since 2016.
I mean, that's so many of our things I think are going to circle back on each other. Like, 'cause it
Hmm.
makes me think about how much different it would have been, because when I was in high school, and this was like mid to late 80s,
Hmm.
I thought about like eating animals. Like,
Hmm.
it just every now and then I have a moment. Like, I remember one specific time I was like cutting chicken breast, helping my mom cook.
Yeah.
I just had this flash of like, this is a chicken. This isn't like another thing. This is
Yeah.
actually like a chicken's body. And I
Hmm.
remember sort of like, I think I must have brought it up before. My mom was like, "Yeah, if you want to like stop eating meat, that's okay, but you have to make your own food." And at the time, I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
So I would just actively like push the idea away.
Hmm.
But if there was more access to like the internet and learning about that stuff, I wonder if I would have had a different experience and gone vegan much sooner.
Like seeing the videos and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
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 Like there
It
was an
was
artist.
so traumatizing.
Yeah, it's bad. Like
Yeah.
Howard Jones is this artist, new wave artist from the 80s, and I was a big
Hmm.
fan, but he was vegetarian. So I would read like little blurbs like in fan magazines and stuff like that because you couldn't like there was no Twitter or anything.
Yeah.
So that's I learned a little bit there, and like some of his songs had like some references to being vegetarian.
Hmm.
But I mean, that was the extent of what I ran into in like small town East Texas in
Yeah.
the 80s. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I think I still would have gone vegetarian or vegan if I didn't see those videos, just because I like even before that I felt weird about it. Yeah, and it really grosses me out now at this point. Like I don't
Yeah.
care if people want to eat it. Like if it's around me, it's fine. I just there's certain times where I'm like deeply disturbed by seeing people. Like if people are eating ribs, anything that's like right off the bone really grosses me out, or certain smells
Yeah.
of meat. Yeah.
Yeah. When you can still see like the body,
Yeah.
like Thanksgiving is sort of challenging. Although I this year I for a long time I just would do vegan Thanksgivings, and this year
Hmm.
like it made me I guess over the last few years I realized like okay, so some of these family members that I really like aunts and uncles, that kind of thing, aren't going to have a vegan Thanksgiving. Like there's
Hmm.
going to be a turkey.
Yeah.
And I also want to see them. So, and one of the times that that's easy is when there's a big gathering. So this
Yeah.
year I did. I went to like a Thanksgiving and I just had to avert my eyes. Like it was one
Hmm.
of those like I don't even know how to describe it, but I had to just be like, well, this is part of what it means to continue having this relationship.
Yeah.
So you got to figure it out or don't like, but they're going to be doing what they're doing. And I
Hmm.
don't get to tell them not to. I can choose not
Yeah.
to participate, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me. Like I know I can't expect everybody to be vegan, so I just pretend it's not even there. Like my dad, he's the main one who like will cook. He was a chef before, and then my stepmom, she really enjoys cooking too. So and he's Persian, so whenever they have food gatherings, it's like huge, so much food. You have like your appetizers, and that's like already a meal in and of itself, and then you have a whole table of food. But he'll make vegan dishes specifically for us, which is really nice. He'll even buy like the vegan like sour cream or vegan cream cheese, like for certain dishes that he makes, which I think is awesome. And then what I think though is annoying with family gatherings with them specifically, they'll be like, "Oh no, like that's vegan. That's just for them," as if it's like disgusting or something. Like
yeah,
even though like so much food is just naturally vegan, like certain pastas,
yeah,
it's just, yeah, it's just very interesting to see how people like, oh, that's vegan, don't eat it, it's for them, or like this one is better because it's not vegan type of thing. So it's just funny to see how they handle that.
yeah. It's like there's so many illogical things about
Hmm.
this. Is one of those moments I want to be careful because I like, and because I guess maybe I could frame it in that I used to do too when I ate meat. I
Hmm.
remember even a time this friend of mine who's still a friend, we were trying to figure out where we are going to go eat. And it was at a time that I was like going to the gym a lot and I was really like
Hmm.
focused on like protein. And,
Yeah.
and she suggested a vegetarian place. And I was like, oh, no.
That's
Like,
so funny.
but it's partly like just what you've learned over the years. But now I lost track of what I was about to say. I think the general idea was just that like there are a lot of like, oh, like you were saying about people being like, oh, no, 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 that's the vegan stuff. Don't eat that.
Yeah. Hmm.
When it's like, it's it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like
Right.
not it's just it's food that people eat. You don't have to like one thing, and I guess I just have gotten used to this. One thing I used to always think about, and I used to be a lot more like aggressive vegan.
Hmm.
When I people would be talking about like, oh, I don't want to have to do a separate vegan dish for whatever gathering. It's like in my mind, I was like, you don't have to just make the whole thing vegan. Then it's food
Hmm.
for everyone.
Hmm.
But then people are like, oh, but what about the meat eaters? Like, well, they could just eat the vegan food. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
It
know. It's
still
one of those.
tastes good. Like it's
Yeah,
not poison. It's
yeah,
gonna be
that's the
okay.
thing. Yeah, but what about the meat eaters are going to need meat? Like, no, they don't. But
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of understand it now. I sort of try to have a bigger picture of other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it also kind of with people when you tell them you're vegan and the things that they say, it kind of relates
Uh-huh.
to that like, oh, so what do you eat? Or like, so do you only eat vegetable? Like, no, like you said,
Yeah.
peanut butter jelly sandwich. Do you eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich? Or do you have everything can be made vegan is the thing
Yeah.
too. Like, so whatever you're eating that's not vegan, I can veganize it. Mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, like there's so many alternatives now. Even before all these alternatives, like there's been options out there, So
Yeah.
it's just so interesting when people do that. How do you get your protein? Like
Yeah.
that's not a concern for anybody else. Like I probably get more protein than people who are non-vegans because they're not
Yeah.
even like, yeah, you just don't even think about that unless somebody says they're vegan.
Right. And like, and you don't think about like when you eat meat, like, oh, where do I get my fiber? Where am I? How am I gonna get my
Exactly.
like? Yeah,
Yeah. As soon as people hear veganism, like hear that you're vegan, it's like almost opening up permission for them to pick on you, or I don't know, like it's like they see you as lower or weird, at least from my experience.
yeah. I'm trying to remember how, like, I feel like there was a time period when I was like, I would sort of push back about that by
Hmm.
being like over the top by and telling them vivid details about why I was vegan. You know,
Hmm.
like someone started giving me a hard time about it. I would just be like, well, I learned, blah, 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 and just be like super descriptive about
Yeah.
what happens to animals in the animal agriculture. Um, I don't think I would still do that. People don't really ask me as much as they used to.
I think the reason the questions don't come up as much for you being vegan is because it's more common these days. Like there's
Yeah.
whether people are vegan for health or for animals, or there's even just like the plant-based option, where people do it to be more health conscious. And I really like the plant-based movement too, like focus on whole foods, plant-based foods, that sort of thing. But veganism is definitely like the full-on lifestyle of it.
Mm.
Like, not wearing leather and obviously the food side of it, not consuming, trying to avoid animal products in everything in life. So yeah, I think it's become more prevalent, and that's probably why people don't ask as much. But I still get teased pretty, like not teased, but it mostly comes up with older adults, I find. Like my boyfriend's parents or my parents, or not my mom really, but my dad's side. I don't know if you deal with this, but people will be like, meat, or like, Layla, look at this steak
Oh,
type of that pisses me off. Like and I
yeah.
have to just like laugh about it, like, you know, because I
Yeah.
really want to be like, what is wrong with you, But
Yeah.
that's not who I am. Because I'm not saying anything. I'm not like, you can't eat
Yeah.
that type of, I'm not going to say anything. So to me, it's very, very rude for people to say that. And these people know why I'm vegan. Like I'm doing it for animals. So for you to be like, this cow or whatever you're saying, I don't get
Yeah.
that. Do
I
you
was
get that ever?
um I don't, and I think part of it is when like there was a long period when I was a very outspoken activist and I was
Hmm.
doing protests and posting a lot of stuff on Facebook,
Yeah.
being very, very, very like vegan.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of people, like the people that didn't block me during that time period,
Yeah.
are also not going to bring it up because they
Yeah.
know how, like, they know what I think of it.
I mean, it doesn't happen amongst like younger friends, I would say, or people who I've recently met. But it's definitely a thing that comes up. And I've noticed in like fa on Facebook, if there's ever any sort of vegan post, it's not even groups that I'm joined, like I'm a part of, but I'll get it on my feed, like vegan recipes or that sort of thing. And there's always people in the comments like, oh, I need some meat or something. Like, what?
Oh yeah.
It's just a recipe. Like, just let it be there.
Yeah. That was the thing I was going to talk about.
Okay.
Like that people will, you don't bring it up.
Uh-huh.
You just mention like, oh, I'm vegan. I'll eat this or, whatever.
Hmm.
Just, and often at an event when it's mostly non-vegans, I try to stay as low key as possible because I don't want to have a thing about it. I
Hmm.
just like try to like, oh yeah, yeah, this is what I'm eating. Inevitably, someone will ask like, why don't you eat meat while they're like gnawing on a chicken bone or something? It's like, okay, so now isn't the time for me to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Um, but like people will bring it up and do what you were saying of like, look at this meat I'm eating, or like those Facebook comments, stuff like that. And
Hmm.
then if a vegan says something back to them, it's like, oh, found the vegan.
Yeah.
Someone's vegan.
Hmm.
Um,
They'll tell you
yeah,
that's the joke. Yeah.
yeah. But you brought it up.
Uh-huh.
Like they brought it up.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
And
that's a
even
thing.
sometimes people will say like, "Oh, why do vegans always have to say they're eating vegan X, vegan Y,
Mm,
But there's been multiple times where I don't say it's vegan, And then whoever I'm around, they're like, "Oh, you're eating chicken?" Like I'll say, "Oh, I'm eating chicken," or something. Like obviously it's vegan because I'm vegan. But they're like, "Oh, I thought you were vegan." Like it's vegan chicken, you know? Like,
Right.
I mean, I could say, I don't know what else I could say to make it
Hmm.
obvious, like this soy-based meat, I don't know what to say to
Yeah.
make it more obvious, but that's why we usually say we're eating vegan this. Because if yeah, even in like all of my videos that I make on my lifestyle channel, I'm always saying vegan blah blah, vegan blah blah. That's like just a habit I've built because if you don't say it, then people could assume it's not vegan. And then it
Yeah.
comes up like, oh, you're not vegan anymore? Like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
why.
or then like what you were saying about saying, oh, well, let me tell you about this soy-based blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And someone's going to be like, oh, I could never be vegan and eat all that processed food.
yeah.
It's like, this is just one thing I happen to be eating right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, for the most part, I eat whole food, like plant-based whole
Hmm.
food. And I do have tofu every single day, every day of my life. And people are weird about that. Not so much to me or anything, but I know like with men, especially, they're like, oh, I don't know what, it disrupts your hormones or something. But
Yeah.
I've eaten it every day for years. I personally love tofu, especially like the way I eat it.
Yeah.
Um, I think it tastes delicious, and I don't think it's that processed. Like it's just soybeans mashed together, and
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's
so
basically like soy milk cheese in a way, right? It's just
yeah,
like a
yeah.
curd of soy milk.
Hmm.
That
So I
sounds
try to avoid, yeah, I try to avoid the processed food too much, but it's like
Yeah.
people will say all of that, but then they're eating like Cheetos and Doritos and and all the
Yeah.
other processed food that's out there.
Yeah. There,
So,
there was a Facebook thing that happened to me several years ago, but a friend of mine and I always joke about it. And he's not even vegan. But I finished this day. I was teaching at this theater school on a Saturday, and there was a
hmm
vegan restaurant right nearby. So I stopped and I was eating miso soup. I took a picture of it and posted on Facebook, like, oh, it's something so peaceful about eating this miso soup, blah, blah.
hmm
And then people started chiming in, like, oh, be careful. Miso soup isn't vegan. And I was like, oh, well, this is at a vegan place.
hmm
It's vegan. Well, someone else chimes in. Well, it contains dashi, which has fish flakes. I'm like, okay, yeah, some miso soup does, but this
hmm
doesn't because like I mentioned, I'm at a
Yeah.
vegan place and this is vegan miso soup. Well, traditionally it's got this, so you got to be careful. Like all these people trying to tell me like how hard
Yeah.
it's going to be. I'm like, yo, it's vegan. I said it's vegan. And then, but then some people were misunderstanding and saying, oh, but miso isn't vegan. I'm like, it is. It's, but it was
Oh
one
my
of those
God.
things. And it just became this whole thing that blew up. And it was like,
Wow.
what is everyone arguing about? I said this at a vegan restaurant. Like,
Yeah.
that's like an example of these things that happen when you're like, I was just
Hmm.
trying to post about my calm afternoon after teaching all
Yeah.
day. And now y'all messing it up.
Yeah. The thing too, though, I don't know how you feel about it, but just like with everything in life, it's not black and white. Like veganism has So I'm not a perfect vegan by any means. I will never knowingly eat a non-vegan product, but I've definitely had foods that I thought were vegan and they were not. Like they've had traces of milk or probably gelatin in them. I've had to take medications before that are not, they definitely test on animals, and then they probably have gelatin in them, like certain pills or even like my biweekly injections. Like that is, I don't know what that process is. I don't think it has animal products in it, but I don't know the testing side of it. So yeah, that's the other thing too, is like I try my best. I will never knowingly consume animal products like that, but I definitely have throughout my journey on accident.
Uh,
So, but I don't stress about it. It's like, oh, I didn't mean to, and I move on. So I
yeah.
think people make a big deal out of that. Like even, do you eat like regular sugar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, it's not vegan because of the way it's ground or something with I don't even know. But I
Like,
do eat regular sugar. Like it's not
yeah.
an animal product itself. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are certain things like that. And then I think when I first went vegan, I was really careful about sugar.
Hmm.
I don't know what happened over time. I think I was just really like, I'm not gonna not eat something that has sugar as an ingredient because I can't
Hmm.
figure out whether how that sugar was processed
Yeah. It's too
and whether
much.
it's vegan. Yeah, like And I think for me, and I just because I've been on both sides of this and I know
Hmm.
how the word militant, I don't think is a great word to describe vegans, but I think it helps people understand what I'm talking about. When I was more
Yeah.
like a militant vegan, I was
Hmm.
that person that would be like, well, that's not, you're not vegan because you're eating
Hmm.
this sugar.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, I feel like being that person that's like sitting at a restaurant with a bunch of non-vegans and quizzing the waiter and making a big spectacle out of like what's vegan, what can I eat, what kind of sugar is this, and doing all this stuff is
Yeah.
actually like a bad look for vegans. Like it makes it look like, oh my God, that guy, I could never do that and ask all
Yeah.
questions all the time. And so maybe that's a cop out. I don't know, but I think there are multiple ways to look at all this stuff.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, to me, the most important thing is like not eating. I don't eat meat, not eating milk, not any eggs, anything, no animal products like that. If something happens to be in the food, I didn't know about it, then okay, I would like to know, so I can avoid it in the future. But it's definitely happened. And um, there's been times too, if I go to a restaurant, I ask for no mayo or something, and they'll put it on there, and
Hmm.
if I'll scrape it off, you
Yeah.
know. Um, to me, because I don't have like a dairy allergy or something like that, that I need to, I'm not gonna have my throat close or anything. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, there might be small traces of mayo on it, but I'm just gonna wipe it off. So that's
Yeah.
my approach to it. That's more sustainable for me. Even there's even some products that I have to use that do test on animals, like toothpaste, for example. I've tried the clean ones, but I have pretty bad teeth. Like I have pretty bad enamel. So for me, I do buy like Crest, I think I have, or like those major brands that I know they
Yeah.
heavily test on animals. So for me, I'm definitely not perfect. I just try my best with all of it.
Yeah, I have the same thing with teeth, and
Yeah.
I use like Sensodyne toothpaste. I love
Mm,
it. This
yeah.
is like vegan true confessions.
Right,
I
right.
use animal tested toothpaste, which I don't. When I
Yes.
say that out loud, I'm like, that really sucks. Like that
It
doesn't.
sounds bad. Yeah.
Yeah. When I first was like planning on going vegan, social media wasn't as big a deal as it is right now, and there was a big like vegan message board. I think it was
Hmm.
called Vegan Freaks,
Yeah.
something like that. But I was always posting these questions, and one of them was like, "Oh my God, I wear contact lenses. I'm sure they're tested on animals.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to like stop wearing contacts and just get a pair of glasses and only wear glasses?" Like I made this whole post like, what am I supposed to do? And like most people were like, okay, you got to calm down. Like,
Yeah.
just wear your contacts. You need to be
Yeah.
able to see. So this is a thing that you just do what you can. Like,
Hmm.
but I was so like, and I think I just have a black and white way of thinking about things. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And I think my biggest vegan confession is I eat honey. And
mm,
so some people may not, I say it all the time in my vlog channel, like I'm buying honey or I'm eating honey. So I'm like, call me plant-based if you want to. But I personally, I buy local honey. So it's from bee farmers. And I don't see it as, because first of all, bee farmers are taking care of their bees. So yes, the honey is food for them in the winter, but they're feeding their bees. They're providing food, like care for their bees. So I'm not going to buy like the teddy bear honey from the grocery store,
yeah.
but I eat honey because I think I don't see it as an animal product like that. I don't know how you feel about it, but plus it helps with like colds and allergies, that sort of thing. So it's just been a big part of my life ever since I was a child. And I feel like if I'm buying it local, it doesn't bother me. And I still can count myself as vegan. So
Well, this episode is over now because
I'm not a vegan.
but I think this is like a really good point because I don't eat honey.
Okay.
Um, But like the thing that I feel like has really changed for me about
Hmm.
veganism and I feel happy about, although I think a lot of my like super activist friends who may even watch this
Hmm.
wouldn't agree, is that like I don't it's not my business whether somebody thinks what I'm doing is vegan.
Hmm. Yeah.
There are like a lot of Reddit threads I would jump in on, be like, no, 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 you can't do that. It's not vegan. But or like someone will say, well, I got jumped on by these vegans because I said whatever.
Hmm.
And like, I kind of have come to a point of like, why do you care if they think you're vegan? Like,
Hmm.
there's not a black and white definition of what vegan is.
That's true.
There can't.
Yeah.
So, does this fit with like, I mean that's not even black and white because like then I mean by that same reasoning, someone could say, look, well, I eat chicken because I think it's vegan, so I'm vegan.
Right.
Okay, so let's maybe not go there. But if you're doing and you know you're doing the very most and it fits with your values,
Hmm.
then why do you care if somebody else says you're not vegan? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
my take on it. So it's kind of relieved me of having to decide whether other people are vegan. I'm like, it's not my business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think with it goes pretty far, like at the end of the day, a honeybee is an insect. And so then it's like, if you're not consuming, like, I don't know, where am I going with this? Like, because then it would have to be, you'd have to do the same thing with all insects.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, because from my understanding, for the most part, when honey is getting collected from bees, there may be some that get killed like in the process, but then you can't kill mosquitoes or the gnats, like the ones we were talking about, because I don't kill bugs,
yeah.
except I'll kill those like mosquitoes and the ticks, any of those major ones. The other day, I rescued a little cockroach that was in my office. So I'll save roaches and spiders, like the bigger ones, because I feel bad. But the ones that are like major peasants, like the real parasites out there, I
Yeah.
will kill those. And it's like, is that vegan or is that what counts? So yeah, I think as long as you have your thought around it or decision around it, then it doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't want to count me vegan, it's okay.
It's so like the thing with honey, partly why I don't eat honey is I'm too lazy to research it. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't care enough. Like
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to just not eat honey. So
Yeah.
like if we were to have a discussion about why honey isn't vegan, I would have no idea how to argue that.
Yeah.
I don't know why what my point is in bringing that up, but I think it's one of the like for me like some of that stuff it's easy to be like, okay, I'm just calling honey non-vegan because I don't want to take the time to figure out whether or not it is.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna not do that.
Hmm.
But I think that's why that part of it works for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what really my main thing though. And then if any medications I take and the toothpaste. But otherwise, I do try to stick with cruelty-free vegan products, even like sneakers I buy, jackets I buy, anything I don't buy leather. That's a huge no-no for me. Like
Oh yeah, me too.
wearing animals for sure. That's like off limits. Even if I'm gifted things, like my boyfriend knows not to buy me shoes with leather or any sort of accessories. I guess that's like the main.
Yeah, wearing
Mhm.
entertainment. There's a
What do you
whole
mean
lot of
entertainment?
well things like animals being used for entertainment.
Oh yeah, I don't
Yeah,
go to the zoo. I don't go to the aquariums. I have with
yeah.
like several years ago. Um, yes, that sickens me. I think because we in Georgia we have like the biggest aquarium I think in the US,
Uh,
and it's so sad. Yeah, I hate that. And the zoos. I remember the last time I went to the zoo was probably in college, and there was like the panda bear pacing back and
mhm.
forth. Yeah, so sad.
Even as a little kid, I remember going to zoos. I don't remember saying anything about it, but I remember having these moments of like, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, that's I wish that would go away. I can understand sanctuaries, like certain things, but even to that, I don't know. Over the years, I've kind of changed of how nature works, like my thoughts on that. I try not to disturb nature too much because it just is what it is. There's certain things that you can try to do, but you probably shouldn't, like saving certain animals. I've tried to do that many times, and I'm like, it's just nature happening, and maybe I shouldn't
Yeah,
touch this type of thing. So even with those sanctuaries, like I understand it for certain, like some animals, they want to keep them alive and all of that, but to what extent is that problematic? I think that's a whole different topic, but
that's. I think it's a really interesting topic, but also like
yeah.
super
Hmm.
controversial, I guess. It's one
Hmm.
of those things like, oh, I almost don't even want to say this. We can cut it out if we need to. Maybe it's not as
Hmm.
controversial as I think, but sometimes when people talk about like, why can't I think of this word? Endangered species or
Hmm.
like a species going extinct. If I were the last human, would I rather that humans were just extinct or that I had to live in a cage.
Exactly. That's
Like
what I think too.
I wouldn't care. Like I'd rather like, can you just let me out of this cage? Like,
Let me be in the ocean. Yeah, for
yeah,
these
yeah.
animals that are extinct. Yeah.
And I'll just be the last one, and then
Hmm.
I'll die, and then we'll be extinct, and none of us will know because we're extinct. It's
Hmm.
like trying to, oh, this sounds so bad to say this because I don't think it's what most people think, but
Hmm.
like they don't care that they're extinct. We can
Yeah. Yeah.
keeping them in zoos to keep them from going extinct so we could feel like we still own them.
Hmm.
Ooh, is that a weird thing to say?
No, I agree. I think that's very accurate because yeah, I would rather those animals be out there. We're also fighting nature. I mean, everything in life is fighting nature if you think about
Yeah.
it. I remember in college I took a biology course and the professor had said like people with cancer, we're trying to keep them alive. Sounds really bad, but she said it. We're trying to keep them alive even though we like technically shouldn't. Like we're keeping a bad gene in the gene pool.
Oh,
And so by keeping them alive, we're continuing that gene pool. And that, of course, we're going to try and do that because why wouldn't you want to continue living? But it is fighting nature. And I just think it's so interesting, that whole topic. And I think with the animal side of things, it should just be kind of left alone. Like, of course, if I see something suffering on the side of the road, or I am going to try to help to, depending on the situation. But there's some things that it's like, oh, just
yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah. I think the other flip side of that, this is such an interesting like direction that we're going in.
Yeah, this is
Really cool.
like full on different topic, but
Yeah, but like I think the flip side of that is also true of like, wait, now I can't remember how I connected to that. Let me just say what I was going to say. Maybe it'll come back to me.
okay.
When, if there are animals going extinct, instead of like, oh, these animals are going extinct, let's take these last two and put them in a zoo so we could keep this alive.
Hmm.
What if instead we were like, oh, they're going extinct? It's probably something we're doing as humans that are causing them to go extinct.
Yeah.
Let's stop doing that thing so they can still exist where they are.
Yeah.
I mean, that is never going to be that easy just because
Never. Yeah.
people are making so much money off of whatever it is that's causing these animals to go extinct.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess tying this back to veganism, I was always under the impression that veganism was super eco-friendly and we're like lowering our carbon footprint. I think that's true to a certain extent, but I don't know now that there's like the introduction of these processed foods and stuff. I don't know how, it's not like I'm buying that all the time or anything, but um, yeah, I don't know the difference between production of a processed meat product versus production of an actual animal, Like I
Yeah.
haven't looked into that, but
I think the thing that I'm most clear on with that type of thing is that um, what makes eating animal products so unsustainable or so I keep forgetting words. Not good. Like uses
mhm.
up too many resources. What's the word for something being? Oh well, it'll come to me. Is that there's so much that's required to grow the animal. They have to have water. They have to be fed. So
Mhm.
that food has to be grown, which also uses
Yeah.
water and resources. And
Hmm.
it would be so much more efficient to just eat the plants instead of sending them through this whole cycle of everything
Yeah,
it takes to raise an animal.
that's
I
so
don't really
true.
know how the process thing fits into all that. But then like it's not required to eat processed food
Hmm.
as a
As a
vegan.
vegan.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true.
A lot to think about with all that
I
stuff.
think it's even more, it's cheaper, healthier, and easier, I would say, to just buy whole foods, like stick to the basics, beans,
Yeah.
rice, everything that grows out of the ground is easier and cheaper. But sometimes you just want the little vegan chicken nugget.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the
It's
other
so
thing
good.
too, is sometimes people will say, oh, if you're vegan, why do you want to eat something that looks like a meat product? And it's not necessarily, for me, I am strictly vegan because I do it for the animals. Like, I don't want to eat an animal, even if that means I'm going to eat something more processed. So that's the only reason. It doesn't mean there were some meats that I thought were gross, but sure, I like the taste of a vegan chicken nugget that probably tastes similar to a real chicken nugget
Mhm.
because it tastes good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think people have such a hard time wrapping their mind around that. Like, why do you want to eat something that tastes like meat? That's really not the point. It's that I don't want to eat an animal, but if there's an alternative for it, then I'll eat that. It doesn't have to mean anything, you know?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times when people bring that one up, they're just trying to have an argument.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Like it
make
doesn't make
sense.
sense.
Yeah. One of my favorite things when I see that, and granted, I don't argue on the internet as much as I used to, would be like,
Hmm.
why do meat eaters insist that this is hard to understand? Because it's
Yeah.
not. Like, I'm not opposed to things that are shaped like nuggets. I'm opposed to eating animals. Like, I don't want to kill animals. And I can
Hmm.
eat this nugget that tastes like the chicken nuggets I used to eat
Hmm.
without intentionally killing an animal. So this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to eat. Like, veganism isn't opposed to things that look like meat.
Yeah.
About not causing harm.
Hmm. Exactly. Oh, something that also comes up too when you tell people why you're vegan is like, oh, I love animals too, but I like how they taste better. Or I've had somebody straight up say like, oh, I don't eat beef or cow, whatever, but I'll eat chicken because I think they're dumb and like deserve to be eaten or something. I've literally heard that from somebody and I don't get it. It's just interesting. Or when people try to say they love animals but they love
Yeah.
eating them too. Like, think the love is a little different there, you
Uh,
know? Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I don't really love animals.
Yeah.
I don't like when people, I don't know. I think this makes me look like a not a nice person when I get to it. But I get really annoyed by like people with their dogs and all this kind of stuff. But but
Okay.
I'm not like it's something that sort of dawned on me. It's like I don't really love animals. Like I didn't decide like, oh, I love animals so much I don't want to eat them. I was like,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't love a lot of people, but I don't want to eat them either. Like it's sort of
Yeah.
like more about what I find to be just or fair way to treat
Yeah.
others. So that's another.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I wouldn't say it's like I think growing up, I really, really loved animals more, even dogs. Because at this point, like I have my foster dog and I don't want a dog. It's just not for me anymore. And in
Yeah.
the past, I can't imagine ever even saying that, you know?
Mhm.
And I do love her. I love our dog, like my sister and I's dogs, they live with her. I love them, but do I want another dog? No. But I definitely will always advocate for them and like adopting and all of that. But even with like I don't go to farms or anything and cows kind of scare me. Like they're big animals, you know, so I just keep my
Yeah.
distance if I'm around them. But I do love them because I just definitely I don't know, I get really emotional when I see like the cow trucks or the chicken trucks. I almost go into like a panic attack. I don't know if you ever see those up there, but here it's pretty common depending on when you're driving on the highway. And I just think it's so messed up. Like that people because we have voices and our mind obviously we have more powerful minds than animals do, we just have the power over them and like to take who are we to take their lives like that and to put them through such torture, you know?
Yeah.
um yeah, so to me it is a very just morally wrong thing for my life,
Yeah.
but
Same.
yeah.
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 Those trucks. I went to a vigil at a slaughterhouse.
Hmm.
Um, have you seen? I haven't seen them on social media as much as I used to. There's a group in
Hmm.
Los Angeles that did them, and I was in LA, and I went to one of these vigils, and the trucks
Hmm.
that come in the middle of the night, and those
Yeah.
pigs. I made a video. There's a video about it, and I wrote a piece of music that goes with it.
Hmm.
It was horrifying because you're right up at the
Yeah.
trucks, and you just see. Oh, I don't even want to go into it anymore. It's
Yeah.
really, it was really hard to see.
Hmm.
Um, those are the things that I think just have become like ingrained in me that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm good not participating in that.
Right. And this is going to kind of get into like the explaining veganism and how it's so eating meat, how it's so disgusting. So I know that there's a couple of things that really disturb me about the meat industry and the dairy industry, but one of them is the animals are stressed. So I've heard that because of that, like that's in their body when you're consuming it. And it can like, I don't know if this is true, but it sounds accurate. Like it can also lead to anxiousness within you because like the hormones or whatever that are
Yeah.
produced because of their stress can go into the meat. And the other thing I've heard too is that they just cut out like tumors. Animals have tumors and nasty things
Mhm.
too. So I've seen where they just like cut out the tumor or cut out the cancer, cut out whatever infection, pusses, all the pus and abscesses. They'll just cut that out and then still serve it. And that's so gross to me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yes,
Yeah, I don't miss eating meat.
it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I know that so your boyfriend he's vegetarian.
Yeah, but he wasn't always.
Hmm.
And your
He's not at
boyfriend,
all.
not at all.
Not at all. Yeah, he would never maybe he would. I would have to like cook for him. He swears it's like so hard or like
Yeah.
he's into bodybuilding, like very much so. So he like tries to hit a certain amount of protein consumption and all of that. And I just think he doesn't, it would be hard as a vegan to hit that amount of protein with just like whole foods, eating clean foods, and like maybe some protein powders thrown in there, which vegan protein powders are hard to find the good ones. But
Oh, that's good to know.
um, I would love for him to go vegan. I don't know if it will happen. I think, I mean, I met him as a non-vegan, so I'm never going to try to push that on him. There are times though where I'll be like, you're literally eating dead bodies, or like, I'll call out certain if he thinks something is gross that I'm eating, or
Uh-huh.
he gets grossed out about things with our foster dog, for example. Like if I use a spoon to pick out her food, which is made of meat, like I use wet food and I use a human spoon, and he
Yeah.
thinks that's gross. And I'm like, you're literally like he's cooking turkey on on the
Yeah.
stove, like you're eating a dead body. So what's the difference? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I hate the smell. That's my biggest thing is the smell of meat cooking in the house. I cannot stand it. Like it pisses me off.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest to live with,
That
but
would be hard, like especially like bacon, things like that have
he
such a
doesn't make
like,
that.
oh,
But
that's something.
it's he makes like ground turkey or ground chicken
Hmm.
and like whatever the fat smell, I don't know what it is. It's just the smell of meat. And
Yeah.
it lasts for like a full 2 days in the house, you know? So I'll burn my Palo Alto or whatever it
Yeah.
is, try to get rid of it. But I'm not going to push it on him. I sometimes I do, but
Yeah.
it's not like I expect him to go vegan.
Yeah. It was when I started dating my boyfriend, it was I was still doing a lot of activism, and I feel like I want to get back to that
Hmm.
some way. Um, but I had also taken the Liberation Pledge. Do you know what this is? It's
I think you mentioned it before,
yeah,
but I can't remember.
it's you just kind of take this pledge not to sit at a table where people are eating animals.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly I'm dating this guy that eats animals. So I really had like this, it was a really like one of those moments in your life that you're like, okay, so this seems like a really good person to date.
Hmm.
Like, and I had to really like figure out like, how am I going to do this? Because I didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to
Yeah.
tell him like, I can't sit at the same table with you if you're eating meat. But at the same time, I understand that pledge, like not wanting to support that.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I just stopped having that pledge.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that made it work in that is that he would ask me questions about why I was vegan, and I
Hmm.
would sort of explain to him kind of carefully, but very truthfully about, some of the stuff we talked about, like slaughterhouses and how the
Hmm.
industry works. And the thing that I think made it really work with these conversations is that he didn't ever argue. He was just like, "Oh, okay." Like he would hear me and like not try to make some kind of weird justification like people make.
Hmm.
And then ultimately he went vegetarian and I didn't even realize it until he'd already been doing it for a while. Because I didn't want to pressure him. Like you're saying, like, I don't think it's helpful to like make it
Hmm.
a, and not that I'm saying meat eaters are like little kids.
Hmm.
They're not. I'm not saying that at
Yeah.
all. But there's a thing that I learned with teaching kids, like, if they're like, there are certain things like, don't have a war about some topic because
Yeah.
then it's about the war and not about the topic.
Hmm.
So if there's a dynamic in our relationship where we're always arguing me, telling me you shouldn't be eating meat,
Hmm.
he's not eating meat because he wants to eat meat only. Now that's his side of the
Yeah.
argument, and he's not. It's going to be harder to get to be able to see it clearly. I guess is what I'm trying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as long as, because my boyfriend, I'm typically, if we cook something at home, it's usually me cooking it. He loves vegan food like that I make. We'll go to restaurants that are completely vegan, or there's a lot of restaurants here that have vegan options at least, so we can pick whatever, suits
Mhm.
us. But yeah, he's down to like go to vegan restaurants. Even today we were t saying, have you been to Slutty Vegan in New
Yes,
York?
finally. Yeah,
Okay, because I think it started here in Atlanta, and that's like
you're
a
right. Yeah,
so good. I love their burgers. So we were talking about going to that maybe this evening, because he likes that. He thinks it's one of the best burgers he's ever had, and I'm like, what does
yeah,
that mean? Um, but no, I think as long as he's willing to like be open to all of that, it's whatever, and hopefully one day he would at least go like vegetarian or something. But I mean, I'm
yeah,
not going to break up with him if he doesn't either.
yeah.
So,
It's an interesting place. I think dating a non-vegan changed me in a way that I appreciate about my veganism. That I
mhm,
don't take it as personally if someone isn't vegan. I don't know if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's everybody's life. Like you can live it how you want to. Like, yes, being non-vegan does affect other lives, like animal lives, but a lot of people just don't see that or don't care to that extent.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I just don't expect it to ever be a huge, huge movement. And as long as I'm doing what I think is best for me, then
yeah,
yeah. There was a time I was considering when I was sick, my
yeah,
doctor was saying like to eat eggs at least, and I considered it. And that was a really weird time for me. It was very emotional. I was crying about it. I had reached out to a local farmer, like, hey, how much are your eggs? Because that was the only, like, if I'm going to eat eggs, it has to be from a farm.
yeah,
And like, so I can see what it looks like and all of that. So I reached out to them, like, got their info, but I never did it. I was like, I can't, like, to me, eggs aren't that bad if they're like locally or, if they're in your backyard or something. Like my grandma, she always had chickens and hens in the backyard, and they would lay these fresh eggs that they were well taken care of. She wasn't slaughtering them or anything. So I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I just morally couldn't. I'm like, but because to me, I am vegan. Like I define myself as a vegan. I'm very connected to that. And so to lose that by eating eggs, I I just couldn't do it. So
yeah, yeah. It kind of comes to a point with some of that stuff like eggs and milk and even meat. Like people talk about like the oh, what do they call it? The lab meat that
oh
they
yeah.
like there's this whole movement of making meat that doesn't
Hmm.
require animals. People ask if I would eat them, like maybe, but like I don't really want to. Like I don't
Yeah.
really feel like I'm missing meat. Like I'm fine. Like I would love to have that to feed to my cat, so I don't have
Hmm.
to feed my cat animals.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't think I would eat lab grown meat either.
yeah,
Just because it's like I think that's better. That'd be cool to go down that path. But I think that presents a whole nother issue. Like the food in America is already so processed that I would be concerned of what that even,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. I haven't really looked into it much. I wouldn't eat it because I just wouldn't want to eat an animal, even if it was lab grown. Like that just sounds gross. And I probably would get sick at this point. We both probably would,
yeah,
if I were to eat actual animal product, a
yeah,
lot of it like that. Yeah. And I'm
yeah,
fine with meat alternatives.
yeah. And there's just so many food. Like once I finally went vegan, I was like, oh, I'm just like excluding like 5 or 6 ingredients
Yeah.
that I used to eat. Like now I still have all this other stuff to eat.
Hmm. And there's all these alternatives. So there's all
Yeah.
the milk alternatives,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really all you need. Even eggs, like if you're baking, you can just use like the ground flaxseed
Oh
or
yeah.
applesauce, or yeah, you don't need it. That's what frustrates me too. I had mentioned this in one of my recent vlogs, I got a pastry from Sprouts. It was a vegan pumpkin chocolate chip muffin. So good. And I'm like, why can't they just all be vegan? Like this tastes, it was
Yeah.
moist, it was delicious. And same with like donuts or other pastries. I understand meat will be different. Like people would want real meat, but with the pastries and stuff, why do we need to make them not vegan if they taste the same? It's going to be cheaper too, in my opinion. But
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just out of habit. Like I used to
yeah,
be about like my friend suggesting a vegetarian restaurant. I was like, no way, I'm not
yeah.
going to do that. Even though I had been vegetarian before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. People like there was a family member when I first went vegan, I was trying out these recipes. I made these lemon bars.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
I want to mention what family member it was in
Oh
case.
God.
But I was like, oh yeah, I made these. I brought them over. And I was like, aren't these so good? I was so excited. I was like, oh, because I thought I was gonna have to eat like a bunch of like crappy food if I went vegan. And I was just so excited. So he asked what was in it. I was like, oh, it's lemon, blah blah blah, tofu. And when I said tofu, he like dropped his fork and he was like, oh, why'd you have to tell me that? And I was
Oh
like,
gosh.
what? And like it really grossed him out.
Hmm.
And from my perspective, I was like, so this doesn't contain like something that came out of a chicken's ass and you're grossed out about that? Like,
It's a bean. It's like
yeah,
literally a bean.
yeah. But I think I mean, that's why there's not like just vegan stuff because people feel like
Yeah.
it's a weird thing.
Hmm. If it's
Uh,
labeled as vegan,
yeah,
it's gonna be gross or dry or yeah. And it's not. It's so good. I mean, if anybody's listening who's not vegan and you see a vegan pastry, like give it a chance because it will probably taste just as good. I
yeah,
think a lot also people confuse vegan and gluten-free for whatever reason.
all the time.
It's not the same thing. Gluten-free can sometimes be very dry. I hate when companies do like vegan and vegan and gluten-free combined. They
Yeah,
tend to always do that. Sometimes they're still pretty moist and okay, but yeah, it's not the same thing. Gluten is entirely different. I eat gluten all the time. So,
I have a friend who's a vegan chef who's
mhm.
also uh has celiac.
That's hard.
She makes amazing vegan gluten-free things,
Hmm.
and it's good. So
Yeah.
it can be done.
Yeah. No,
I
no,
don't know
there's been
how
good
to.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it can also be really bad.
Hmm.
There was a
Yeah.
famous bakery in New York. I think it's under a different name. I also don't want to throw them under the bus, but it was one of the places I went when I was trying to go vegan. I was like, oh, this famous cupcake place
Hmm.
has vegan cupcakes. I'm going to go get some and see what these. And I wasn't even vegan yet. And I got them. I was so depressed. I was like, these are terrible. Like
Yeah.
the frosting was like runny. They were like gritty
Hmm.
cupcakes, and I was like, oh no, this is like. And to me, I was like, this is the one that everyone's talking about,
Yeah.
cupcakes, and these are terrible.
Uh,
Luckily, that isn't.
yeah.
Has to be the reality.
Yeah. No, I make vegan pastries pretty frequently, like cake every birthday.
Hmm.
Um, I always use the website Loving It Vegan or Nora Cooks if I'm getting recipes. And yeah, they're all super moist and
Yeah.
delicious. Usually the egg replacement is flax. You
Mhm.
just ground flaxseed and let it sit in some water. It kind of thickens things up. There's almond milk, oat milk, all the milks,
Yeah.
vegan butter, everything is out there. So it's still just as good. With the vegan butters, they're not very healthy, obviously, but neither is most regular butters either.
Yeah.
So oil based are the vegan ones, but I think they're delicious. And I'm so glad there's the alternatives because I know, I mean, even you've been vegan for a lot longer. I had a client I worked with who she was vegan since like the 90s,
Hmm.
and the options back then were very thin from my understanding. So it's just interesting
Yeah.
how far it's come.
There's one woman I know uh, who's been vegan a long time, and I always feel like I've been a vegan a long time until she makes a post on Facebook about
Hmm.
like, oh, anyone remember the days of powdered soy milk? Like the only soy milk they could get was powdered, and you'd
Uh-huh.
have to like mix it with water to get your soy milk.
Yeah.
And that she'd post those. And I'm like, okay, so I haven't been vegan that long. Gotta remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I know there were no, because now there's really good cheese options, which is
Oh yeah,
like a blessing.
yeah. And
Because
that showed up.
I loved cheese. So,
Yeah, same. When I was vegan before, I left, feels like a change. It was a pretty big change in the vegan world when Daya
uh-huh.
came out, or Daya, however you say it.
Yeah.
Which is not even the best one anymore, but it was
Mm-mm.
the first one that came out that didn't like turn into a puddle when you put it on
Yep.
like, pizza or something. And it would be like, oh, it kind of stretches. Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now there's
Yeah.
tons of options.
And Daya's improved. They've changed their recipe lately, and it's because I used to avoid it because
Yeah.
it was so gross, like very just like chalky, and
Yeah.
it did not melt. But now it's gotten better. They changed it, and I like Follow Your Heart, or I think there's
Yeah.
Miyokos or something.
Miyoko.
That
Yeah.
one's yeah, that one's good. They're all good.
Yeah.
Even it's a game changer is the Baby Bells with the
Oh, I
green.
still never tried those.
Oh, you need to. There's I could eat the whole bag. I could eat like 6 bags.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Oh, I need
Yeah,
to try those.
they're very good. Each year for lately for Christmas with my sister and my mom, we've been doing like a vegan charcuterie board. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, there's like these really nice cheeses now with like they taste like brie cheese, little triangles.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, they're very good at Sprouts. They're kind of expensive, but so is real cheese, like regular cheese, very
Yeah.
expensive. So it's like a couple
And
times a
vegan cheese
year.
doesn't smell like dirty feet, like
Yeah,
fancy cow's milk
blue
cheese.
cheese. Yeah.
I do. I really liked blue cheese though, but it does have that. It's mold. That's up.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's like smells a little rotten. I know when I was non-vegan, I really liked like hot pepper jack cheese, which
Hmm.
there are some options for that. Um, like shredded hot cheese from for vegans. So yeah, so many options out there. It's amazing. Yeah, I think we touched on everything then. We could
Uh,
probably make a whole separate episode on veganism and like
yeah.
specifics of it, but
Maybe
this
people
is
will
our
ask
first.
questions and we could do like another one.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. That is our thoughts on veganism. We
Yeah.
talk about stuff.
Talk about stuff. I think we did a good job. I feel
Yeah,
like we did without,
yeah.
yeah. I have such a background of being more of a, I'm trying to think of a positive way to say aggressive vegan.
I
But
think
an
I know
advocate,
what it
an activist.
yeah, act more into activism because I there were some times where I would post like those disturbing videos or
Hmm.
photos, especially when I was younger. Um, but I found that it's not helpful. Even now, like I know somebody who posts, she went vegan recently and she posts those and like I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna look at it. I
Yeah.
try to scroll past it. I don't want that in my brain. I think it just makes people avoid you. Like they'll just probably turn
Yeah.
off. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I think that
don't.
happened with me when I was in that. I hate calling it a phase because I think it's valid, but
Hmm.
like it also isn't always. I think I don't know. It's sometimes for some people it is effective. Like I think some
Yeah.
people saw that and it really did stick with them, but
Hmm.
the majority of people probably like rolled their eyes at best, at worst, just blocked me or unfriended me because they didn't want to see it,
Yeah.
and then had a story about this vegan friend they used to have who was so obnoxious and kept posting graphic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think we're open if anybody is listening and wants to learn about veganism, let us know. Happy to talk on it more. I mean, just know that there's so much out there that you can eat. Like it's if you are questioning like, oh, what do vegans eat? Everything except animal products, and there's a
Yeah,
lot. If you're eating a vegetable, that's vegan. If you're eating rice, that's vegan. If you're eating peanut butter and jelly, it's probably vegan.
yeah,
Yeah, like I still eat breads, I still eat all the same foods as everybody else, just there's a lot of alternatives. So it's really not that bad.
yeah. It's way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Especially these days with all the options. So let us know if any questions. Happy to talk more on it. So
Uh,
give us a thumbs up or like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment. We would appreciate it. And we will talk to you in our next episode.
yeah. Thanks for watching and listening and all that stuff.
Do the things.
Do all of them.